Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Today I'm going to be walking you through 2013 Forest River Kz Durango 296Bhs. We are just going to start off at the back of the unit. So you're going to find you have your 2-inch receiver out back here as well as that 7-pin plug. Just keep it in mind you do have some weight restrictions whenever you are using that, so just keep that in mind. You got your back bumper tube, which is typically where you're going to keep that sewer hose. You get access from both sides. Pull in the bumper cap. Pops right out of place. You can then insert your sewer hose. That's typically where you're going to want to store that after your first use. We do have a brand new one located inside the front compartment, which is why there's not one in there yet. And then in the back here, in the back two corners, you do have your stabilizer jacks. You got the two front landing legs to stabilize you up front, but in the back you got these two legs. They just operate on a 3/4 inch socket, running this drive nut down to the ground. Once the foot does contact the ground, just giving another 8/4 turn to snug it up. It's going to take any bounce or sway you see we have in the unit right now away. Just a couple notes with these guys is they are stabilizing jacks. They're not leveling jacks. Please don't try and use them as so, otherwise you do run the risk of bending them. And then of course, if you're running them up or down with an impact, just keep in mind how much torque you put on them, because again, they are pretty easy to bend. And then you got your rear entryway door here. This is going to be for your rear bunk bathroom. The half bath, you just get the toilet and the sink, and of course some storage space. So that's how you would be looking to enter through there. We're going to enter through the main door though today, so just pointing that out to let you know that that is there. Then you get your standard 30 amp plug end. Most campsites should have this, so you can plug right on in, but let's say you have the unit at home or your campsite only has 15 amp service, which is your standard household outlet. We do include that park adapter, but just keep it in mind whenever you are using it. You are just really using it to run your fridge and your lights. You're not going to want to run your air conditioner off that. Plugging this guy in. This cord is about 15 feet long once fully extended, so it might be a good idea, depending on where you usually camp, to get an extension cord, but maybe you don't need one, so just keep that in mind. So you got that there. Coming a little further ahead. Sorry, in between the two tires, you got your two overflow drains here. So once you start filling up the fresh tank and the fresh tank starts getting full, it's going to start squirting water out of one of these two hoses. And the drain for that fresh tank is located right here. It's this little black valve. It might be hard to see in the camera, but it is just in front of this back tire, right in between your suspension components. Just reach your arm in there. You should be able to twist that, and that is how you drain the fresh tank. A little bit further up ahead, you get a little docking light. So if you're emptying your sewage at night, you get a little light to light up for you. You come underneath here, twisting and taking this sewer hose off. It's going to be how you get your sewer hose on. Cap has the same ears the sewer hose would have. Thread it on there, twist it on, lock it on. You're good to go to empty those tanks. You got the two valves here, one being the gray, one being the black. And then you have one extra entrance here at the back, and that is just for your back set of tanks. Your back black tank is going to be this guy here. Inside this first compartment here, you take that, open up that guy, it goes right through to the other side. It's typically where you're going to want to store all your water hoses and stuff like that. You do get this standard starter kit, which we include, and that's where you're going to find your 50 amp park adapter. It's also where you're going to find 10-foot sewer hose, 15-foot water hose, and some other miscellaneous goodies. You get this little portable sprayer. It comes with two different ends. You got this, which is a garden hose style, or you have this one, which is more shower style, depending on what you would want to use it for. That's what you're using. You got your little antifreeze hose inlet, so when it comes time to winterization, if you are doing it yourself, this would be the hose that you're going to be using. Stick into that jug of antifreeze, and then right up here, you kind of get your main water kind of area. It's got instructions here. So you got valves A and B. So depending on what you want to do corresponding to this, you just have to turn those valves in those correct positions, and it's as simple as that. You do have two black tank flushers. This one in the center is going to be for the back tank. This one on the right is going to be for this front tank. And then you got city water connection in, but of course, depending on which way you have those valves is what that will do. So you're either going to be filling the fresh tank, city water, or you got a couple different options for sanitizing or winterizing, of course. Slime latches, which is quite nice. Twist and open this, guys. This is where you get your two 30-pound propane tanks. Customer before you obviously opted to go with the bigger tanks. Got your regulator right at the front with it pointed this way. You're going to be drawing off this tank counterclockwise like any standard barbecue to open up the flow. Then on the other side, if this tank were to go dry, just closing that off, flipping it over to this side, and you run off that tank there. In this front one, really it is just storage space, but just keep in mind on the right, that's where you're going to house your battery. There's also some cables there, which you're going to want to avoid storing anything around. Then you get your battery disconnect switch on the wall with it in the on position like it is now. It becomes, batteries are connected to the unit. If you were to turn that to the off position where this key is now removable, the batteries would become disconnected from the unit. Landing gear control here, so you either retract it or extend it, depending on what you want to do. This is just going to be the other side to that storage compartment. Again, you're just getting some storage space, as well as that 3/4 inch drive tool. It's a manual tool for those stabilizer jacks at the back. Again, you can use an impact, just keep in mind how much torque you're putting on them. It's just using a 3/4 inch socket. And then that other guy in there is going to be to run your slide outs manually. There's a manual slide out override over inside here. That's why this hole is here, so you insert that tool through the hole, and then you can manually crank that slide out, either open or close, depending on what you need to do. Just keep it in mind because it's a manual override, and you're going to have to override not only the power of the slide, but also the power of the motor. It's going to be a lot of tension on there, so just do your best to try and open it. You got your two little flaps here. It's for your range hood. Undo those little tabs. That'll allow your flap to open up so you can then evacuate those fumes as you are making them. And then closing them up whenever you're traveling, that's just going to stop any excess dust from getting inside of there. This guy right here is just a fridge service port. There's not much you need to worry about. Furnace exhaust, whenever your furnace is running, it'll be blowing out hot air, so just be mindful of that. Got a couple different plugs here, as well as cable satellite outlet. And then here, you got your hot water service port. Main thing you're going to worry about, given that pressure relief valve pull, there should be a shot of water coming out of there, letting you know that the tank's full. We do currently have the tank drained, ready for you to pick up, because we're not sure when you're going to be using the tank again next. But just next time you are using the camper, when you turn on your water, just give your water heater a few seconds to allow it time to fill up a little bit, and then you can try turning it on. That way, again, there's some water in the tank when you do turn it on. There's a little on-off switch here. With the switch on, the water heater is on electric. With the switch off, the water heater is on gas. There's a reset button if you are firing on gas. The button I'm going to refer to is just right here. I'll go over a procedure for resetting once we get inside. That's what you need to worry about inside of there. And then the rest of the unit's pretty self-explanatory. So now for the best part, we will take a step on inside. First thing you notice is this assist handle. So you push it up, hold it 90 degrees, and it will allow it to lock into place. You can then pull the stairs, those just fold it and plop on down like so. That'll allow you to open up your door. Once you do open up that door, you can take a step on inside. First thing you notice off on the right is that fire extinguisher, which is pretty much just like home, pull the pin and shoot. Next, you got some light switches on the wall. So this first one on the left is going to do all the main living space lights. The one right in the middle is going to do a porch light outside here. And then the other one is turning on some accent lighting around the front of the unit, I do believe. And then you got your awning control. So before you ever run your awning, keep an eye on the wind speeds if you're rolling it out. That way you're not going to run the risk of bending or ripping your fabrics, because once the wind speeds pick up, this does act much like a wind sail and doesn't take much to rip your arms or bend your fabric. So once you start extending this, once you see the back of the metal tube and the little flap hang down, you know you're at your full extension. Now sometimes that flap can get stuck, so you might just have to retract it a couple feet and try putting it back out again to try and get that flap to hang down. You see today it happened right away. So we got the back of the metal tube and the little flap hanging down, so you know you're at your full extension. Now if we were to start raining, you can take any arm, front or rear, and you got these metal tabs here, push it into place. You can then either pull that awning away from you or pull it towards you. You're going to want to make sure you have both sides, even if you're running that slide out in or out. But to change the pitch of the awning head, allow water to run off, if you close one all the way and open up the other, it's going to allow water to run off. Now, of course, if you like the angle better with them both all the way down, because it's going to allow for more shade underneath, you can do that. Just making sure you do put them both back to their natural resting positions before you try and run that awning. That way you don't run the risk of bending anything. And then to bring it in, it would be as simple as pushing and holding that in button. The awning would start rolling its way in. Once the arms contact the side of the trailer, the motors would automatically cut out. Now, once you get inside here, you're probably wondering where's the rest of your switch panels. It is just underneath here. Pulling that guy down, you got your slide out controls. So you push and hold on the out button, the slide out's going to start making its way out. Now, before you ever run any of the slide outs inside this unit, you are going to want to make sure that you try and give them a quick visual check inside and out. The reason I say inside is just making sure nothing's going to get caught between that slide out and the wall, just in case anything's shifted during travel, which a lot of times it does. I know sometimes with some slides you can't see them, so just be visual as you run them to make sure they're going out nice and even, not binding on anything. And then of course, just on the outside, making sure you have enough room to put it all the way out without running something into it. And once that slider reaches its full extension, you're going to hear the motor wind up and click, and that's when you know you're all the way there. Now all these slide outs do work the same way. They're going to all do that. Now, if you wanted to be really sure that the slide out's at its full extension, just stick your hand out between the slide out. You want to make sure that slide out rubber seals flush against the wall. That way you're sealing out any water, and then you continue on with the rest of your slide outs. You're going to have one in the bedroom, then of course one for the bunk space. Again, just being mindful, watching them, making sure they're going out nice and even, and you're not catching on anything. So there's that slide out, front slide out, now that last rear slide out, making its way out. In addition to that, this is also where you're going to find your monitor panel system. So pushing the button tells you the corresponding level, and that goes for battery, fresh, black, and gray. And there you go. So in addition to that, you got your main tank, which is going to be for that front bathroom. That's what your black is hooked up to, your black one. And then extra tank is going to be for the back bedroom, for that tank, black tank. Then you got your DS floodlight, turning that on, turns on another little light outside. Water pump, turning that on, draws out of your fresh tank, pretty self-explanatory. Water heater, electric or gas. So depending on which button you push is what it's going to fire up. If you do push it on gas, making sure the gas system's purged. We'll go over more of that again once we get to our stove. Water heater is going to try lighting itself 3 times. If on the 3rd try it doesn't light, this DSI fault light's going to stay on, in which case you just have to turn this off, go hit your reset button I showed you earlier, and then retry lighting it again, because it could just be a purging issue. But again, we're going to go over a little bit of purging notes once we get to our stove. Flipping that guy up, you got your basic entertainment center, not much I'm going to show you there, minus the fact of your A, B, and C speakers. A is going to be for your front set of speakers, B is going to be for this back set, C is going to be for your outside. Popping that guy down, you got your main breaker panel. Whenever breaker trips, it'll sit in the middle, so you just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it. All your corresponding fuses will be on the right. Storage all around. There's going to be tons of storage inside of this unit. Just of course being mindful of drains, water lines, and wiring whenever you're using any of it. And then of course you also have tons of accent lighting. It's going to be on its own center push button, so you can discover it as you go through the unit. There's going to be lots of it. Again, just they're going to be on their own center push buttons. You got your slide out area here. This couch does fold out into a bed. You're just having to grab the foot of the couch, pull, and allow it to fold down. You have yourself another couch. Then fold it back, another bed, fold it back in. You just have to grab it, kind of grab the top of it and assist it back into place a little bit. Folds back down into a couch. The dinette also folds out into a bed. Of course, if you're having extra sleeping guests, you just have to pull the feet from underneath the table, set the tabletop on its desired ledges, and then you can take your back cushions to fill in the center. All the blinds in the unit do work the same way. They just kind of sit where you leave them. Kitchen area, pretty self-explanatory. Sink, storage all around. Got your microwave, which is just like home. Same thing with your range hood. Now, I always recommend running your range hood whenever you are running your oven. That way you're evacuating those propane fumes. And since we're getting into the topic of propane, we're just going to go over a few notes. You got your LP detector, which is right here near the ground. If this guy ever starts going off, don't panic. Just turn off the main supply of propane at the front of the unit. Open up some windows and vents to get some fresh oxygen inside of here. And then you should be good to go to resume normal events. Now, whenever you turn the propane system off, or of course disconnect one of the bottles, it does allow air into the system. Once the air makes its way in, it does have to be purged out. The quickest, easiest way to do that is going to be through your stove. The reason I say that is you get to decide how many times you try and light it, how long you leave the gas valve open for. If you go to try fire up your water heater, your fridge, or your furnace, those will only try lighting themselves a couple times before they'll throw a fault code at you. And if you don't know what the fault code means, it could throw a little wrench into your weekend. So typically, if you ever try to go firing up something gas and it doesn't fire up right away, it's always a good idea to turn it off. Try and fire up your stove first, get all the air purged out. Once that's done, then you can go and try and refire that other appliance. That way, you know you're getting adequate flow propane. Now, unfortunately, today I did forget the lighter before we started the video. This one doesn't have one built in. So you just have to turn it over to the high/light option, hold a lighter near it, and it fires right on up. But of course, being safe while doing so, because allowing this to run this on, that's allowing gas to make its way out. So if you're purging, not a big deal, because whenever you're trying to purge it, you're always going to have your lighter over top of it and lit. That way you don't get a buildup of gas and a minor combustion, because if that minor combustion were to happen, there's a chance you're going to be losing some eyebrows and eyelashes. That's something we're going to be wanting to avoid. So again, just having your lighter handy and always lit whenever you have any of the gas valves open. That way when you're running it, as soon as the gas does start coming out, you're not going to get that buildup. It's going to light right away and it's going to go smooth as pie. So just being safe whenever you're using it. Same thing goes for the oven. Pushing it over to the pilot option, pushing and holding that button in. You then take your lighter down below, stick your lighter right by that gas orifice. Once the pilot would be able to lit and hold its own without having the button pushed in, you could then turn it up to your desired temperature and it would fire right on up. To our right, you got your fridge. So you got your temperature control for both the fridge and freezer over here, 5 obviously being the coldest. It's also going to be how you get the fridge coldest the fastest. So let's say your significant other told you the night before, hey, remember to turn on the fridge in the RV. You totally forget. Throw it on the 5th setting. I know it's going to be the coldest setting, but it's also what allows that fridge to run wide open. So it's going to get the coldest the quickest, and then you can turn it, once it's at your desired feel of temperature, you can turn it down to whatever you would like. Whenever you turn it on, you can either turn it on auto, which is the setting I recommend using, because it'll run off shore power. Once shore power is taken away, it'll automatically switch over to gas. But if you prefer to solely run it on gas, which is also going to be the less efficient option, but it does get the fridge colder faster and keeps the fridge colder, you can run it on gas. You just having to switch over to that gas option, making sure you have the system purged, because if this starts flashing and beeping, it's probably because it failed to light on gas. So again, it could be related to a purging issue. So just check with that. Make sure you're all purged and good to go. Other than that, you get storage all around. We can make our way into the back bunk area. Light switches on just on the wall. You got 2 bunk beds over here. You got some cabinets. There's going to be a little backer here. If you wanted to mount a TV, that would be where you do so. I don't know if I would recommend doing it in here, but you could if you wanted to. You got this little screen here to get that. You just have to pull on it. That's going to pop right out of place, and then you can take your handle, push it, hop on out of the unit. That is the fireplace. Now, in addition to this little bunk room here, you get this last door, which is going to get you into that group bathroom I already showed you from the outside. So the kids can have their own bathroom. You can have your main GFI plug on the wall here. So if you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, this would be the first place I'd look. Just making sure that system isn't tripped, because sometimes they can trip for weirdest reasons. So just double check that that's not tripped if you ever have something that's not working. Other than that, it's a standard bunk space. So since we kind of went over everything in here, we can start making our way towards the back here. Smoke detector above my head. Obviously, if that starts going off, maybe check for smoke. It's probably a panic situation. You got your thermostat. That's going to be how you control your air conditioner and your furnace. Temperature selection is up top, so wherever you want it, that's where you leave it, and that's where it should stay. Whenever you're using your fan setting, especially if you want to fire up your furnace, you do have to have that fan setting in auto. In addition to that, whenever the system is in auto, it's an on-demand system. So if you have the air conditioning on, you have the room set to 70 and it's at 73. Once it reaches 70, it'll automatically kill the air conditioner. If you have that fan setting on the on setting on high or low, it's going to run continuously regardless of what you have the room set to, so just keep that in mind. And again, if you had that on the on section and you wanted to kill the AC and fire up the furnace, the fan on the air conditioner is still going to continue running, which will kind of defeat the purpose. So it's always a good idea to have that, leave that in auto, whether you want it on high or low, it's a personal preference. And then you just got your different mode settings. So obviously clicking it to the right is going to be the heat setting. And then you got a fan setting, which is just moving air around with the air conditioner, no heating or cooling involved. And then 2 all the way to the left is going to be your cool setting, and that's the air conditioning setting. The air conditioner moves all its air through the ceiling ducting you have throughout the unit. And this main thing here, pulling these guys open, it'll dump all its air into the main living space. So once you get to your campsite, if it's super hot in here, I always recommend leaving those guys open, cooling off the main living space. Once the living space is cooled off, you can then close these louvers, in which case it'll start moving its air more throughout the unit. Air does make it get intake through here, so that's why I always say cool off the main living space. The heater only has 1 fan speed. It's going to move all its air through the floor portals we have throughout the unit. There's no really setting for that. Now taking a step up into the bedroom, you have this sliding curtain for privacy, or you do have this little sliding door feature. Just keep it in mind there's a travel strap on it. It's there for a reason. Whenever you're traveling, making sure it's locked up. Otherwise, it's going to allow it to travel back and forth freely, probably causing damage. Now, the rest of the lights inside this bunk space are just on their own little center push buttons, so you can turn them on and off as you'd like. Inside the bedroom space, tons of storage. Again, just be mindful of drains, water lines, and wiring. You got a bunch of different outlets all around the unit. Over here is where you're going to have the TV backer for the bedroom space, coax outlets here, as well as a couple different plugins. You also got this little button here that does turn the antenna on the roof. It's also going to improve radio frequency and cell phone frequency, so I recommend leaving it on whenever you're camping, but try to remember to turn it off. That way you're not drawing excess battery power whenever you're not using it. And then you do get the master bathroom. Opening up that door, light switch on the wall, turning that on. You get to get another light switch at the back by the toilet, just by on its own center push button. And other than that, it's a pretty standard bathroom, fridge, toilet, sink, shower. Up top, you get a roof vent. So if you're showering, you want to evacuate the steam, it's going to be the best way to do so. But you're going to notice with this open all the way, you're straight up into the atmosphere. So if it were to start raining, it's going to get wet inside of here. And of course, if you were to forget this open while traveling, there is a risk that you damage your vent lid. We do sell max air covers here at the shop. It's going to go over top of this. It's a great little addition at not so much of a cost. And that's going to allow you to leave this open and run it whether it's raining. And if you forget it open while traveling, it's not a big deal. It also adds an extra level of safety for when if you had it wherever in a hailstorm, it's going to first damage the cover before it breaks your real cover and allows rain inside. So if you'd like to get some of that, just contact your parts department. They'd be more than happy to help you out, put a quote together for you. Other than that, that is going to be it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give me a call.